If this material is not confusing enough, allow me to muddy the water some more. We're going to talk about another group of dissenters of what's going on in England religiously that are similar to the separatists, but they also have distinct differences. And they're known as the Puritans. The Puritans wanted to purify the Church of England. They did not believe it was so corrupt that it was beyond redemption and could not change. They wanted to show the world how to do it. And what are we talking about purifying the Church of England? Well, basically, they want to get the Catholic influence within the Church of England gone. So basically, for example, we're going to see some rejections of various doctrines and various facets of the Anglican Church. For example, they're going to reject the notion of a book of common prayer. They believed that prayer instead should come from the heart, not from reading a book. Go to a Catholic mass here in this city and then go to another one an hour later in another city. And what you're going to find is that the masses are identical. The prayers are the same. The readings are the same. Really, the only difference is going to be the homily and perhaps the music during the mass. And even then, they're going to have a similar theme, most likely. But nonetheless, so the Book of Common Prayer should not be around. Instead, prayer should come from the heart. They believed if you're reading out of a book, you're really not praying. You're not being very sincere about your prayer. So you need to make sure that you are saying it from the heart, of being much more sincere in your pleas to God. So you can do that. And if you're going to use a book to pray with, well, the best book available is going to be the Bible itself. Use the Bible in order to pray, but don't use a book of common prayer. Another idea that they're going to reject is the hierarchical church. If you look at clergy members today, you can find, they're easy to find when you see them outside of their churches. They generally are going to wear different clothing. Roman Catholic priests are going to wear the Roman collar, for example, and they're going to stick out and be distinct from the rest of the population. Puritans say, none of that. We don't need that. There's no separate clergy. They need to be one with their congregation. Another idea that they're going to reject is the premise that the church is for everybody. Christianity is an evangelical religion, but the Puritans say, yeah, but it doesn't mean that everybody's going to be able to join. They're going to have very strict membership requirements in order to become a full member of the Puritan congregation. As we will see over time, however, that the requirements of becoming a Puritan is going to weaken over time, and in fact, they're going to even call it the halfway covenant, so that they can maintain their numbers. So that's what Puritans are doing religiously. They're showing up in 1630. The year before that, they are being persecuted by other English Protestants, particularly the Anglicans, and they say it's time to go. So they petition the king in 1629, and he grants them basically a charter. Go to Massachusetts Bay and set up your own colony in order to show the world how to purify the church. Well, Charles is not saying that, but that's what they're going to do. So in 1630, they arrive. And when they arrive, they're going to establish a government and consisting of a two-house legislature, a deputy governor, and a governor. And for the next 12 years, you start to see settlers showing up. And in fact, we have about 13,000 of them. And as long as they stay along the coastline, in general, they're going to be in peace with the local Indian tribes. But however, with population pressures and new people showing up into Massachusetts Bay Colony, you're going to see that they're going to push further inland. And that's going to lead to problems, particularly with the local Indian tribe known as the Pequots. The Pequots and the Puritans are eventually going to face off against one another in a war. So in addition to problems with the Indians, they're going to also have, the Puritans are also going to have problems with their own people. There's going to be dissenters, and in fact, Massachusetts Bay is going to give rise to the founders of numerous colonies. And so let's talk about them in this slide as well. The first one is going to be Rhode Island. Rhode Island is going to be eventually established by a man named Roger Williams. Williams is going to, he is a minister in Salem, in Massachusetts Bay Colony, and he objects to the treatment of the Indians. He also advocates for the separation of the church and the state. And his constant protests and his constant dissensions are going to lead to his being expelled from Massachusetts Bay. In fact, he's going to be expelled in 1636. He's going to travel south, and he's going to establish what we now know as Rhode Island. And he will establish the city that he establishes known as Providence. Eventually, he will be joined by someone named Anne Hutchinson. And Hutchinson is going to believe that she had a revelation from God, saying that grace comes from the serenity in your soul rather than by an outward show of piety. And she's also going to desire more equality for women in an era and place where it's dominated by men. For this, she's tried for heresy. She claimed that these revelations came from God, and she is going to be outcast from Massachusetts Bay in 1637. She and her followers will join Williams in Rhode Island, and Williams is going to be able to establish the colony of Rhode Island in 1644. Another colony that's going to be established from a dissenter out of Massachusetts Bay is Connecticut. The founder of Connecticut is a man named Thomas Hooker. And Hooker is a minister of the church in Cambridge, and he is going to disagree with the strict standards of the Puritans for full membership. Plus his followers are going to desire better farmland. Well, in 1636, he's going to move. He's going to leave Massachusetts Bay, and he's going to go to what we call Connecticut, establishing the city of Hartford. And there he's going to create a government based on the model of the Massachusetts Bay Colony, but he's going to have fewer restrictions when it comes to his wing of the church, particularly when it comes to voting. Voting will become open to all male landowners. And in 1662, Parliament grants Connecticut the right to exist and to have a self-government. The final colony that comes out of a dissension against Massachusetts Bay Colony is New Hampshire, where there are dissenters that are trying to get better farmland and less restrictive government. And they go and they establish New Hampshire in 1679. These are some of the colonies that are established as a result of dissent against the Puritans of Massachusetts Bay Colony.